is Citizen Weekend with Olive Burrows.
Welcome to Citizen Weekend. These remarks, and that is that Kenya and China are co-architects of a new world order, have rubbed some people in Washington the wrong way. Senator James Risch, who is the U.S. Senate chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, has called for a review of Kenya's major non-NATO ally status. And tonight, together with Dr. Edgar Githwa here in studio, and Joanna LeBlanc, who is an adjunct professor of American foreign policy at the Howard University. She'll be joining us from Washington, D.C. The question we'll be posing is, how serious is this, and what do they make of how Kenya has responded? As is the custom, we begin with the highlights.
Katoka nyumbani mbio na kufika nikadhibitisha kwamba mlikuwa na ajali, na bahati mbaya mke wangu ametuacha kupitia ajali hiyo. It's very unfortunate.
8 passengers killed as matatu collides head-on with a lorry in Korompoi along the Kitengela-Namanga Highway in Kajiado.
Yaani bilioni 5 tutapatia kwa vijana wa kawaida waweze kufanya biashara zao.
Gifted by State House. Thousands of youth receive motorcycles among assorted items as Ruto stages an elaborate empowerment drive at State House.
A wolf cannot decide matters of a cow crowd. The Swahili say, fish hawezi kufanya case, kusimamia kesi ya mbuzi.
Compensation, but not under the executive. Opposition leaders demand a transfer of the protest victims' compensation process to KNCHR.
People who are saying they have information on terrorists and criminals, they must be held accountable.
You have to substantiate your claims. Gachagua to record statement upon return from the U.S. for associating President Ruto with terror groups. In the last 72 hours, we've reported on 50 fatalities as a result of major transit-related incidents. Today, 8 people lost their lives in a collision between an overtaking lorry and a public service vehicle in Korompoi on the Namanga Road. The death toll from yesterday's accident, in which a school bus ferrying mourners overturned on the Kisumu-Kakamega Road at Coptic, has risen to 26. Another 9 lives were lost on Thursday when a Kenya Pipeline Company bus was involved in a collision with a Kenya Railways train at a railway crossing near the Morendat Training and Conference Center in Naivasha. On Thursday still, 6 lives are lost when an Amref air ambulance with 2 flight crew on board and 2 medical personnel came down in Mwihoko, Kiambu County, claiming 2 lives on impact. Gatete Njoroge with the latest report on the accident that happened at Korompoi along the Kitengela-Namanga Highway.
Onions, vehicle parts, bloodstains on the road. The scene in Korompoi along Namanga-Kitengela Road on Saturday morning. The aftermath of a grisly road accident involving a lorry and a matatu. Witnesses say the accident happened around 7:30 a.m. when the lorry driver was overtaking without due regard for oncoming traffic. The lorry collided head-on with 14-seater PSV run by Nailepu Sacco, which was headed to Kitengela from Isinya town. 7 people died at the scene.
Nimepata kuna jam sana, so nikaeka gari yangu kando kukuja. Sasa kukuja hapo nikasaidia, nikaona mwili mingi wako chini, na tumesaidia kubeba wale wenye wamekufa, wako watu 7, tumeweka hapo kwa hiyo gari ya polisi.
The driver of the said lorry failed to keep his proper traffic lane, hence causing head-on collision with a matatu.
Another victim succumbed to injuries on arrival at Kitengela Level 4 Hospital. It is at the same facility where the bodies of the 7 who died were taken to. Family and friends who arrived to identify the bodies of their loved ones broke down in disbelief.
Bahati mbaya mke wangu ametuacha kupitia ajali hiyo. It's very unfortunate. Na tunaomba Mungu tu atusaidie kwa sababu ni pigo ambalo hakuna mtu ataweza kuziba nafasi hiyo.
Nikifua maguo hapa ndio nimesikia simu ya Mama Rose. Nikasikia anapigia mzee na hasiki simu. Nikapiga simu ikachukuliwa na mtu mwingine wa hapo stage, kijana wa hapo kwa stage. Akaniambia yeye ndiye amechukua wallet ya mzee na simu yake. Na mzee amelala hapa na hajasikia mzuri. Sasa ndio nimekuta kama amelala hapo kwa barabara amekufa.
Korompoi residents who were among the first responders have blamed road agencies for failing to erect speed bumps and marking the road, which is a black spot.
Wiki mbili zimepita, watu wamefariki pale kwa daraja hapa Korompoi. Tukaambiwa tutawekewa bumps. Bumps tujaona, wamekuja wakatupakia rangi kwa lami. Sasa mimi nauliza serikali ya Samuel William Ruto, isukuma mtuwekee bump hapa kwa daraja.
Tumechoka na hii barabara ya hapa Korompoi. Last week tumepoteza mama mwenda ambaye tunatembea na yeye, amepotea na mtoto. Leo tena tumepoteza zaidi ya watu 6. Swali ni rangi yenye mnatupakia ni ya nguo ama ni ya kuchukua watoto wetu?
8 survivors, among them the lorry driver, were rushed to different hospitals in Kitengela where they are receiving treatment. Police have launched investigations and urged motorists using the road to exercise caution. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV.
Having looked at the latest incident in a troubling trend, now we follow up on incidents from the last 2 days with Njokishege as our sign language interpreter. The death toll in the Kisumu Coptic roundabout accident has risen to 26 after one more patient passed on while receiving treatment at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital Friday night. Medical Services Principal Secretary Dr. Oma Oluga says a total of 26 patients are admitted at the facility as medical personnel race against time to save their lives. As you'll hear now from Brenda Wanga, the Kenya National Highways Authority and the Ministry of Transport have been urged to redesign the stretch of road where the accident occurred.
The sting of death bears heavily on the families and friends of those who lost their lives Friday evening in Kisumu County when the bus they were traveling in from another funeral was involved in a fatal crash, claiming 21 lives on the spot and 5 more in hospital.
Na msichana yangu ni ya ugonjwa. Sasa mimi naomba msaada, wafundishe watoto yake paka wamalize shule.
Nimepoteza baba kwa ajali iliyotendeka.
The deceased were all closely related. They had attended the burial of one of their kin in Nyahera, Kisumu West, and were heading back to their homes in Nyakach when disaster struck, stripping one family of 13 close relatives and 26 members of their extended family.
Nimeona jambo yenye sijaiona kwa maisha yangu yote. Juu wasasi watu wangu wote wameisha. Ikiwa ni mandugu wameisha. Sasa hii wenye wamekufa imeelekea 27.
The bus accident also left scores nursing varying degrees of injuries. The county and national governments pledging to shoulder the financial burden and offer psychosocial support for the families affected.
All the patients who were admitted because they need surgery. So the first step usually is stabilizing the patients. Because somebody who is bleeding, you stop the bleeding. Somebody who has pain, you stop the pain, and then you monitor them. So then after that, you start planning for the surgeries. Some of them need what we call internal fixation. They need metal. So those have to be measured, they have to be acquired, and then fixed.
We are mobilizing every single resource that is in this city, and that's the assurance that we are giving to our patients and also to the relatives that we do not want to lose any more life.
And as the governments and families continue to grapple with the tragedy of unimaginable proportions, calls on redesigning the road where the accident occurred are growing. The Kisumu Coptic roundabout has been a black spot and has claimed tens of lives.
As you come from there, the roundabout is built as a structure for the whole road, even if you deal the roundabout, but you don't deal with the whole road. You see, even if you deal the roundabout, but you don't deal with the whole road, you're doing nothing. So it's not just the roundabout, it's the structure of the road. The very conception of the road need to be reconceived.
Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Franklin Walla will have a report for us in not too long on the Amref air crash. President William Ruto's administration pumped millions of shillings into the Nairobi Youth Economic Empowerment Program held at State House, Nairobi today and attended by thousands of young people who received startup equipment for their businesses, with an estimated $500 million shillings spent on motorbikes and plastic chairs alone. Serious questions are emerging over the source of these funds, with Parliament yet to approve any specific budget allocation for the program. In Siaya, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga reiterated his stand that supporting President William Ruto was a necessary compromise. Melita Oletenges has more.
Thousands of youth trooped to State House, Nairobi early Saturday for the Nairobi Youth Economic Empowerment Program, targeting various groups across the capital. President Ruto presiding over the distribution of different items and what appeared to be a flex of government financial muscle that saw 380,000 plastic chairs, 350 motorcycles, sewing machines, large water tanks, cooking equipment, car wash machines and more handed out. An estimated 380 million went into 380,000 plastic chairs at a cost of 1,000 each, while about 54 million was spent on 350 motorcycles priced at 155,000 each. That's close to $500 million shillings, excluding the cost of sewing machines, water tanks, cooking gear and car wash machines. The items costing the government millions, mirroring similar empowerment programs rolled out in different parts of the country in recent months.
Wachana na hizi ya hapa ambayo tunapatiana leo. Next month, tunapatiana shilingi bilioni 5 kwa vijana ambao wanafanya biashara.
Zile vitu ziko hapa, ni nyinyi muliuliza ama mnaekelewa? Muliuliza ama mnaekelewa? Wangapi waliuliza car wash? Wangapi waliuliza saloon?
However, State House offered no clarity on the exact funding source, a silence that has elicited questions among Kenyans on how the government is financing such large-scale programs without clear budgetary approval. The event also doubled as a political rallying point.
We will not succumb to the threats of one term. We are committed to the transformation of our nation.
Ruto also condemned critics calling for the Hustler Fund to be scrapped.
Tuondoe kisirani, tuondoe hasira, tuondoe chuki na migawanyiko, tuungane.
In recent weeks, President Ruto has visibly stepped up efforts in youth-oriented projects, including sports, at a time when his administration faces mounting opposition, especially from the Gen Z movement. In Siaya, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga reiterated his stand on supporting President William Ruto, insisting he has no regrets.
We were at a stage where Kenya could actually easily take over and become a failed state. So it was then necessary to take emergency measures to ensure that we do not get into the precipice. It was necessary to make compromises in the interest of the country. This is what we did, and we don't regret having taken that the action that we did.
He was speaking at the burial of former Arieda MP Bob Jalango Nyanduga. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
A day after President William Ruto announced a framework for compensation of protests victims dating back to 2017, the opposition has questioned the legal basis for such a framework. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and his DAP Kenya counterpart Eugene Wamalwa say the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights should oversee the process, faulting Professor Makau Mutua's role and saying the executive cannot be trusted to compensate for protests, as it is accused of being behind those woes. Francis Mtalaki reports from Mombasa.
The opposition, which has been pushing for the compensation of families of victims of protests from the Azimio and the Gen Z demonstrations, says the executive is responsible for the killings and therefore cannot be trusted to handle the compensation process. The protests left more than 60 people dead and scores injured.
Through the shoot to kill and shoot in the leg orders can be the ones to again be responsible for redress and compensation of their own victims of police brutality. A wolf cannot decide matters of the cow crowd. The Swahili say, fish hawezi kufanya kesi, kusimamia kesi ya mbuzi.
The rules of natural justice demand impartiality. Victims cannot trust a process led by a presidential appointee whose loyalty is now to the state. The same state that was the aggressor in the Azimio protests 2023, in the Gen Z protests 2024, and in the recent Sabasaba protest.
The opposition is demanding a process with a clear roadmap that seeks to create an inclusive committee that will collect views on how much and who are to be compensated.
We will make sure that these Kenyans are compensated. By the way, there is no budgetary allocation. You cannot therefore jump up and say we'll pay Kenyans. They like to say 100,000 or 10 million. The amount that they will have to pay so that this country be committed to constitutional order and conduct will be punitive. There's such a thing in law as punitive damages, including those people who committed these atrocities.
Kalonzo and Eugene are also demanding the immediate suspension of Professor Makau Mutua's role in the compensation framework pending court examination of his advisory appointment by President William Ruto. The two opposition leaders calling for transfer of all redress processes to the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, citing Article 59(1)(e) of the Constitution. The two further demanding a public disclosure of the legal basis for creating a parallel compensation structure.
The dangling of goodies has just started. Even this Professor Mutua team is just one of the goodies to show that at least they want to compensate the victims. They might not.
The leaders say they will remain united as they prepare to square it out with President William Ruto. The president received a significant boost from ODM leader Raila Odinga, who hinted at the likelihood of supporting him in his 2027 re-election. Francis Mtalaki, Citizen TV, Mombasa.
Related to that report by Mtalaki, and following a directive issued by President William Ruto for the compensation of victims of demonstrations and those injured from 2017 to date, the family of 21-year-old Peter Macharia, who was killed during Sabasaba demonstrations in Kirinyaga, has welcomed the move. They have, however, expressed skepticism on whether the president will keep his word, even as it grapples with the loss of a loved one 1 month on. Similar statements were echoed by human rights activists in Mombasa, who want the perpetrators of the killings named publicly and prosecuted to enable the wheels of justice to roll. Crispin Otieno with that report.
Saturday morning in Kagumo village, Kirinyaga County, the family of the late Peter Macharia, a 21-year-old youth, shot dead at Kagumo in Kirinyaga during the Sabasaba demonstrations. It happened barely a month ago, and Macharia's ailing parents are yet to come to terms with the loss. Their faces are telling. They doubt President Ruto's remarks in Homa Bay on Friday about compensation for the victims of protests dating back to 2017.
Ya kusema atalipa wale watu walikufa na wale waliumia watakuwa compensated. Ni jambo la maana, lakini pande yetu sisi tumepoteza watoto na wale watu wameumia. Hatuwezi kuona kama ni kitu, kwa sababu hata kama atatupatia pesa au alipe pesa, pesa haitakuwa mtoto.
Macharia's father is not impressed by the president's proposal. He expresses doubts which he says are informed by experience.
Iwe atafanya, lakini sio kusema na mdomo vile amezoea kutuambia. Nitafanya hii na afanyi. Kwa hivyo tutangoja tuone kitendo kama atafanya.
President wetu akuwe mtu
wa amani, sio mtu mkoropi. Tunataka useme na utende. Usiseme maneno itatendeka, kwa sababu ukifanya maneno itatendeka, kila mtu wote anaona wewe uwezi kufanya vizuri kwa nchi yetu.
Their statements align with those of Mombasa-based activists who say the issue of compensation should not take a political trajectory.
Na tuna emphasize isiwe propaganda, isiwe mchezo wa paka na panya. Maanake tunajua declarations zingine hata kama imekuwa gazetted, kuna frustration ya kufuatizia.
Kuna wale ambao walisababisha haya yote kutokea, hasa wale maafisa wa polisi ambao walitumia excessive force. Ni lazima wachukuliwe hatua na wafikishwe mahakamani.
The activists additionally demanded the president to also pronounce himself on many youths who are still missing to date, leaving their families in agony. Crispin Otieno, Citizen TV.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen says the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will have to record a statement with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations on arrival from the United States about his recent remarks of a meeting between the head of state and militia from the outlawed terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Speaking in KO South on Saturday, Murkomen accused the former Deputy President of tarnishing the country's name in his quest for popularity, saying he must be held accountable for his remarks. Similar sentiments were echoed by the serving Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who was attending a fundraiser in Elgeyo Marakwet. Laura Otieno has more.
With his ongoing 2-month tour of America, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has stepped on the government toes, attracting a directive requiring him to record a statement as soon as he touches down on Kenyan soil. His allegations of a meeting between President William Ruto and Al-Shabaab militia in Mandera earning him a tongue lashing. He is accused of tarnishing the country's image in the diaspora.
People who are saying they have information on terrorists and criminals, they must be held accountable and they must record their statement so that they can help us to investigate, establish the issue and make sure we protect Kenya from harm, from bandits, terrorists and criminals.
Because he has said he has information and he knows and he has an agent who is sitting in meetings with Al-Shabaab, as soon as he lands in Kenya, he must record a statement to tell us exactly which meetings he's doing with terrorists.
Other leaders allied to government who also attended fundraisers in KO South and Voi continued to drum up support for President William Ruto, vowing uniform distribution of government projects.
Tulinde nchi yetu, tukemee wale wa binafsi na unafiki, ili Kenya isimame pamoja. Mtu wa Taita Taveta ana haki ya kuishi popote, kama mtu wa Bungoma, kama mtu wa Kisumu, kama mtu wa Kiambu.
Wale ambao wanang'ang'ana kutupiga vita wajipange, kwa sababu sisi ajenda yetu ya William Ruto ni ajenda ya kuinua akina mama, ajenda ya kusaidia wananchi wa Kenya.
Kenya will only grow with practical solutions kama ya leo. Mama apate kitu ajimudu, kijana apate kitu ajimudu. Ile Kiingereza mingi hata ukipeleka Amerika haiwezi badilisha shida ambayo tuko nayo hapa.
Inatakikana maji, inatakana barabara, inatakana market. Hiyo yote itafanywa chini ya amani na umoja ya kitaifa.
The leaders asked Kenyans to champion environmental conservation to tackle the effects of climate change. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Tonight, the family of Jane Omusula, one of AMREF's staff who perished in the ill-fated crash on Thursday, is in mourning. Her family described Jane as cherished, saying her good deeds when she was alive will be missed dearly. As you'll hear now from Franklin Wala, Jane's family is yet to come to terms with the untimely and tragic demise of a woman who was viewed as the only hope for her family.
Daniel Omusula, Jane Omusula's brother, recounts how life was good until the demise of his sister, who perished on Thursday when an AMREF aircraft crashed in Mwihoko.
She was the most dedicated person I've ever seen. She was a go-getter.
Maybe it's God's plan. Maybe God had planned that's the way she'll go.
Born and raised in Ebutunyi, a small village within Butere in Kakamega, Jen dared to dream. After her high school education, she enrolled for a diploma course at Mukumu Nursing Home. She later joined the Aga Khan Hospital in Kisumu and enrolled for a degree program. As time went by, she got employed at MPSHA in Nairobi and graduated with a master's degree in nursing from the University of Nairobi. Upon her graduation, she secured her job with AMREF in the year 2021 as an emergency nurse with the air crew. Her family say the kind-hearted woman, as many viewed her, helped many people back home, and she was a critical component. The young woman lived her life, and when it got to work, she gave her best to the profession. While not working out at the gym, Jen will be playing golf. She was a golfer. During her free time, she traveled and was a lover of adventure.
She hasn't really been enjoying her life. Like, she lives good. She enjoys. She travels. She likes traveling. She enjoys. Maybe she knew. She knew this life was just something to pass. She lived her life like a butterfly.
Her helping hand was evident. She sacrificed and paid school fees, rent and medical bills for relatives and family. She was the only hope they held onto.
I think she was not a real human being. She was like an angel. Because even me, I cannot be like that. I cannot help people like that. I've never seen such a person. Jen, in our family, she's a doctor. She's the only doctor. If anybody is sick, like there's a time I've been sick, like twice, seriously sick. Jen calls me and tells me, take a mat, go to Kenyatta. When you get to Kenyatta, ask so-and-so.
The pain of her loss cuts deep in the entire family, with members saying it will be a difficult blow to recover from.
I think we have lost somebody we can't replace. We have lost somebody we can never replace, never. We don't know whether it's God's plan. We don't know. But it has happened.
Jen died alongside Muthuka Munuve, who was the captain of the plane and check pilot, having served in the capacity for 7 years. Captain Brian Kimani Miharo was an instructor and a co-pilot ready to transition to a check pilot. Dr. Charles Mugo Njoroge was the medical doctor on board. AMREF has mourned the deaths of their crew members as an immense loss, not only to the organization.
We honor the lives of Captain Muthuka Munuve, Captain Brian Kimani Miharo, Dr. Charles Mugo Njoroge, and Nurse Jane Rispa Aluoch Omusula, who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to humanity. These were not just professionals, they were heroes. We acknowledge the 2 fatalities at Mwihoko, and we are providing psychological support.
Meanwhile, on Saturday, there were more recoveries from the scene of the crash as investigators combed through the area in search of evidence. Franklin Wala, Citizen TV.
What tragic losses. We take a break on Citizen Weekend, but remember we do have a conversation coming up on Kenya, her allies and quote-unquote core architects. Stay tuned to Citizen Weekend.